You may remember Serena Williams spitting the dummy at the 2018 US Open, but I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about the international incident that followed, leading to Australia being accused of racism, all because of this cartoon drawn by Mark Knight, a cartoonist with the Herald Sun newspaper in Melbourne. As a white Australian male in his mid 50s, I looked at this cartoon and I couldn't see why it's racist. Then on TV, I saw an African American explain it was the exaggerated size of the lips and so on that caused the offence. I thought, but in drawing a caricature, don't cartoonists exaggerate features? But I'm not one to think my views are always right, so I decided to investigate. Firstly, Mark Knight was accused of being a racist, which he denied. So I thought the first thing to do is to get an accurate definition of what a racist is. The Oxford Dictionary defines a racist as a person who shows or feels discrimination or prejudice against people of other races or who believes that a particular race is superior to another. I looked at several other sources and it seems clear that the definition of whether a person is racist is based more on the intent of that person than the perception of others. So, is Mark Knight being a racist or is he simply ignorant? He is an Australian of similar vintage to me, so I can accept that he was probably as ignorant as me and didn't intend to be a racist. And so, since he didn't intend to be, he isn't a racist. But that's not the end of the story. Dr. Jason Johnson, a professor of politics and journalism at Morgan State University, stated in an article on news.com.au that it didn't matter what Knight's intention was. If his cartoon was received as racist, it was racist. So we now have an argument that a cartoon is racist if it is perceived as racist. In my opinion, I did not perceive it as racist, nor did Mark Knight or his editor. But whose opinion is more important, a white Australian or an African American? I would have to say that I have always thought that the opinion of the person being offended is the more relevant than the actual intention. So, if we are ignorant to having caused offence, we should apologise and at least try to change our future behaviour to avoid offence. But unfortunately, I think it's just human nature that if we're accused of being something we believe we are not, then our first instinct is to deny and defend our actions. My point is twofold. Mark Knight's instinct was to defend himself, and the Sun Herald's actions supported his belief that he was right. Perhaps this was a mistake, and they should have focused on the offence that was caused rather than their strong belief there was no racist intent involved. The second point is that both sides are focused on their own cultural beliefs of what is and isn't racist. and from their own perspectives, they are right. But from the other's perspective, they are wrong. I did read American commentators acknowledging that Australians are probably not as culturally aware of the race issues in the US. But these same commentators did not believe Mark Knight would have been totally ignorant. However, from my perspective, I see it as highly likely he was totally ignorant. I was quite surprised to find in my research that internationally Australians are considered to be racist and even close to being considered like South Africa in the past. Stan Grant, an Indigenous Australian journalist, has stated Australians are proud of their tolerance, yet can be perplexed when challenged on race. Their response often defensive. Recent research has shown around 85% of Australians support multiculturalism and 66% believe we should do more to learn about the customs and heritage of different ethnic and cultural groups in this country. Also, there is an increasing belief that Australia's National Day of 26th of January should be changed as it commemorates the day European settlement began in 1788 and is referred to by Indigenous Australians as Invasion Day. But I guess Australia's history is not flattering, as demonstrated by my previous video on the White Australia policy. Also consider that the 2010 US Census indicated that 72.4% of their population were white, whereas in 2011 the white Australian population was estimated to be between 85 and 90%. However, historically, Australia's population was around 99% white from the early 1900s until the late 1960s. So, growing up in Australia in the 1960s and 1970s, it was very rare to see anyone who wasn't white. In fact, it was still very rare to see anyone of African descent in Australia, or at least in Newcastle, until around 2005. Since then, a large proportion of immigrants to Australia have been from Africa. Anyway, I guess my point is white Australians of my generation are generally very ignorant of what causes racial offence to African Americans. Also, our media didn't take much care in avoiding such offence because little of it was ever likely to be seen outside Australia. But about 20 years ago, the World Wide Web began to change all that. So us white Australian old farts have to try and get over our cultural ignorance. But even when we try, it's likely we'll still put our foot in it. But if you call us racist, we can and do take offence. Sorry, but our national pride gets in the way sometimes. I'm David A. Elliott. If you like what you've seen, click on the like button, make sure you subscribe and keep watching for new videos. And if you really, really love them, then help support me to make more from as little as $1 a month at Patreon. Have a good one and see you around like a ristle.